The wife urges her husband to run for greater political office, but he says family comes first. The wife traded everything by entering politics to suit her selfish desires. My husband was a wealthy and prosperous businessman. He had developed a massive economic empire, and his name was respected and admired in both corporate and social circles. He was happy with his life, focusing completely on expanding his business ventures and providing for his family. For many years, I witnessed politicians seeking my husband's support at their rallies. As a result, I had always harbored the secret hope that he might one day run for a higher political office, but I lacked the confidence to voice that ambition. I just had this adrenaline rush when a large crowd chanted your name or slogans. I looked at my husband one day while we were sitting in our luxurious living room, enjoying a cup of tea, and I asked him about his interest in politics. He told me that he had no interest in politics at all. When I asked him why powerful politicians sought his support, he told me that it was because of his influence in the business community. On that same day, I mustered up a little more courage and told him my desire to consider politics as an option. He told me that he didn't. I gave him the impression that I understood his perspective by nodding, but I couldn't get rid of the idea that I could make a difference in the world. For as long as I can remember, I've had a deep interest in social concerns, and I've always believed that politics offers a unique opportunity to effect real and lasting change. During the days that followed, I was unable to get the notion out of my mind. I participated in community events, had conversations with elected officials, and did thorough research on the political situation. As I gained more knowledge, I became more resolved to use my education to effect positive change in the world through politics. After a few months, I once again mustered up the courage to have a conversation with my husband about my desire to express my desire to make a difference in people's lives through politics, aiming to help those in need and work towards a better future for everyone. My husband gave me a warm grin and put a reassuring touch on my shoulder before telling me that he understood my desire to assist those who were in need. However, politics is a difficult and uncertain realm to navigate. It's not as glamorous as it might seem, and there are instances when it can be downright cruel. I firmly responded to him, saying that I am aware that it will not be simple, but that I have faith in myself. I am willing to take the chance, and I am counting on your assistance throughout this endeavor. As soon as he realized that I was being rigid, he imposed the condition that in 1 month, if I was able to amass 500 followers without using his name, then he would back me, but if I failed to do so, then we would never again talk about this subject. I decided to accept the challenge, and we came to an agreement. The next day, I did not follow any of my normal routines before leaving the house, and on that day, while I was walking down the street, I noticed how the behavior of the individuals around me had altered. People who had known me for years acted as if they had never met me when I was without my security and elegant car. People who had always greeted me with respect acted as if I was nobody, and people who had always gone out of their way to offer their services to me that day acted as if I was some sort of lowlife. At the local coffee shop, I gathered a few of my best friends to talk about the proposition with me, and I couldn't contain my excitement about the upcoming get-together. At first, they were astonished to see me without any guards around me. However, I disregarded their suspicions and started telling them about my intentions, so one by one, they found excuses to leave the meetup, and soon I was left alone. I've always been very adamant about what I want, and it doesn't matter how low I have to drop to acquire it. I always end up with what I want. When the notion entered my head to forsake my friends and the rest of my social circle in favor of forming an alliance with city politicians, I immediately set out to make contact with those individuals. Nevertheless, this proved to be my second unsuccessful attempt, as I did not obtain a fruitful result even from politicians. I was so close to giving up all of my hopes and getting back to my usual rich life when one day I got approached by some unknown politician. This was due to the fact that the person who had contacted me in the first place did not divulge the identity of the politician on whose behalf he was talking to me. He told me that my husband was playing behind my back, that he was contacting everyone to persuade them not to meet me, and that if anyone did decide to see me, he would withdraw his support from their rallies. That information hit me like a ton of bricks, but after I collected myself, I questioned him about why on earth he opted to meet me when he should have followed the order of my husband, with whom he had been friends for years. Then he held his palm over mine and pressed, and I looked at him with uncertainty. Then he set out his pitch on the table, which was that if I spent a hot night with him, he would enable me to gather a specific number of followers, which would be required to register a party. I immediately pulled my hand away from his, stood up and yelled at him to cut off all communication with him in the future. It had become my new normal to sleep with politicians and exert my influence over others in order to amass a larger following. I had not even the slightest twinge of guilt for what I was doing, which was simply to fulfill my ego, and when finally the day had come, I got the worst shock of my life. Every single person backed off, and I learned that all of the men I'd been sleeping with were actually my husband's pawns, and that on the day my husband smiled at me, I mistook his smile for a sign of ego because he was actually proud of me for turning down an offer that was against him. However, after I accepted to sleep with another man so that I could gain more followers, my husband's rage was evident in his spittle, and he devised a plan to completely destroy my life and humiliate me. When I saw everything happen right in front of me, I went into a rage and started yelling at my husband, saying that he was the only one to blame because he was the one who had tried to lead me down that path in the first place. Then he informed me that he was evaluating how thick my skin was to see if I would get into politics, and that kind of deal is offered twice a day to every ambitious human being. I should have stood loyal to my husband no matter who told me what. If I had no belief that pawn, then I would have never misunderstood my husband's smile as a taunt. After all of that, I requested that my husband give me another chance, but he refused to do that and threw me out of his house. I did not go to my parents since I could not tell them that I cheated on my husband merely to satisfy my wants. I had no friends left, so I went to the hotel to book a room for a few nights because I had nowhere else to go. I wanted to think about what I was going to do with my life going forward because I had lost everything: my marriage, my status, my so-called friends, and I even couldn't disclose anything to my parents. After 2 days, my father contacted me and asked if anything was wrong with my life. I immediately lied to him, and then he informed me about the papers that were being served at his place. At that point, I understood why he had asked if everything was well or not, because he had seen the documents. I closed my eyes and tears started rolling down my face. Then he told me about the court date, and after 6 months of hearings, my husband granted me a divorce, and I was given my rightful portion of assets as alimony. I attempted to start a new chapter in my life in the same city, but my history was embedded in every corner of this city, so I chose to go to another town. After approximately a year had passed, I went back to see my parents for the first time since it had taken me that long to get up the confidence to face them after everything I had done. I was so ashamed of what I had been through. When I was in another city, I met George, and because of him, I gave my heart to someone once again after a long time.